The rain fell in relentless sheets, hammering the cracked pavement of Chicago's industrial district, where warehouses loomed like silent giants under a bruised sky. A sleek black Rolls-Royce idled beneath a flickering street lamp, its polished chrome catching the neon glow of a greasy spoon diner across the street. Inside the car, Victor Langston, a real estate tycoon whose name was synonymous with power, gripped his phone so tightly his knuckles whitened. At 52, he'd built an empire from nothing, his skyscrapers piercing the Chicago skyline, his wealth a fortress against the world. But tonight, that fortress was crumbling. Beside him sat his daughter, Emily, 17, her face pale but resolute, her wheelchair folded in the trunk. Another hospital visit, another parade of specialists with furrowed brows and pitying eyes, had ended in the same hollow prognosis. No hope. Emily's legs, paralyzed and the drunk driver stole her future 3 years ago, would never move again. Victor's jaw clenched as he stared out the rain-streaked window, his world unraveling despite the billions in his bank account. Outside, a boy stood in the downpour, no older than 16, his tattered hoodie clinging to his thin frame like a second skin. He held a soggy cardboard sign, "Anything helps," scrawled in uneven marker. His hazel eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked onto Victor as the millionaire stepped out, shielding himself with a black umbrella. The boy's voice sliced through the rain, steady and clear, carrying a weight that didn't match his ragged appearance. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Victor froze, his umbrella tilting, rain soaking the lapels of his tailored suit. The words hit like a physical blow, audacious and unthinkable. A beggar, daring to speak about his daughter? His Emily, whose accident had shattered his heart as much as her spine. Rage surged in Victor's chest, hot and familiar, the kind that crushed boardroom rivals and silenced doubters. "You're out of your mind, kid," he snapped, his voice dripping with contempt. "Sharp enough to cut. Get lost before I call the cops." He took a step forward, towering over the boy, expecting him to cower, to scamper back into the shadows where he belonged. But the boy didn't flinch. His gaze held Victor's, calm, almost knowing, as if he saw through the millionaire's armor to the grief beneath. "I'm not lying, Mr. Langston," he said, his voice low but piercing, each word deliberate. "I know things your doctors don't." He stepped closer, rain streaming down his face, soaking his worn sneakers. "Give me 5 minutes. If I'm wrong, you'll never see me again." Victor's hand twitched toward his phone, fingers itching to dial security and have this insolent kid dragged away. But something in the boy's eyes, a quiet, unshakable certainty, made him pause. It wasn't desperation or greed. It was conviction, raw and undeniable. How did this kid know his name? And why did Victor, a man who trusted no one, feel like he just stepped into a game he didn't understand? His eyes flicked to the car, where Emily watched through the tinted window, her expression unreadable. The rain drummed harder, and Victor's heart pounded in time with it. Victor Langston was a man who owned skylines, his name etched in steel and glass across Chicago's towering buildings. He clawed his way from a South Side tenement to a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, his ambition ruthless, his success absolute. But all of it, every deal, every dollar, meant nothing against the one failure that haunted him, Emily. 3 years ago, a drunk driver had T-boned their car on I-94, leaving Emily paralyzed at T-12, her dreams of dancing, of running, of a normal life shattered in an instant. Victor had poured millions into her care, surgeries, therapies, specialists flown in from Zurich, Boston, Tokyo, but the answer was always the same, irreversible. His arrogance, once his greatest weapon, had become his cage, locking him in a cycle of hope and despair. He trusted no one, especially not some street rat with a bold claim. Yet the boy's words lingered, taunting him with possibility. The boy, Caleb, was a mystery wrapped in rags. His clothes were thrift store cast-offs, his sneakers worn to the soles, the laces frayed and knotted. He carried no bag, no belongings, just a battered notebook tucked inside his hoodie, its edges curling from the rain. His posture was straight, defiant, his words deliberate, each one chosen with precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. His hazel eyes seemed older than his years, carrying a weight Victor couldn't place, as if they'd seen things, suffered things, that no 16-year-old should. Caleb spoke with quiet intensity, not begging, not pleading, but stating facts, as if he held a truth the world had overlooked. He was a nobody, yet his presence demanded attention, a paradox that unsettled Victor more than he cared to admit. Emily was a heart of it all, the reason Victor woke each morning and fought through the pain. At 17, she was sharp, resilient, her spirit unbroken despite the accident that had taken her legs. She'd endured countless surgeries, physical therapy sessions that left her exhausted, and the endless parade of doctors who spoke in careful, practiced tones. Her hands, folded in her lap as she watched from the car, were steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hope, a spark that hadn't been there in months. She'd stopped believing in miracles long ago, but something about Caleb's voice, its quiet strength, its certainty, made her lean forward, her breath catching. She didn't know if she believed him, but she wanted to. The power imbalance was stark, almost cinematic. A billionaire who could buy hospitals, a disabled girl clinging to fading hope, and a homeless boy with nothing but words to his name. Victor's disdain radiated from him, his every gesture, his squared shoulders, his sharp tone, screaming superiority. He was used to commanding rooms, bending people to his will. Caleb, though, stood his ground, his calm defiant a silent challenge to Victor's world, a world where money was power and power was everything. Yet here was this boy, with nothing, daring to offer something Victor's millions couldn't buy. Victor's laugh was cold, cutting through the rain like a blade. "You've got some nerve, kid," he said, stepping closer, his height and bulk looming over Caleb. "You think you can scam me? Me? I've dealt with con artists smarter than you, slicker than you, and they're all broke now." He gestured toward the Rolls-Royce, where Emily's silhouette was visible through the window. "My daughter's been through hell. You don't get to play games with her life." His voice was a growl, the kind that made executives tremble, but Caleb didn't budge. "I'm not playing, sir," Caleb said, his voice steady, his eyes never leaving Victor's. "I've studied her case. I know about the accident on I-94, the T12 spinal injury, the failed nerve grafts at Northwestern Memorial. I know the doctors told you she'd never walk again." He paused, letting the words settle, heavy as the rain. "They're wrong." Victor's face darkened, his pulse spiking. "How the hell do you know that?" he demanded, his voice low, dangerous, the kind of tone that silenced boardrooms. The idea that this boy, barely old enough to drive, knew details of Emily's private medical history sent a chill down his spine, colder than the rain soaking his suit. He grabbed Caleb's arm, his grip iron tight, his fingers digging into the boy's thin frame. "Who are you? Who sent you?" His eyes searched Caleb's face for a lie, a crack, anything to confirm this was a scam. Caleb winced, the pain flickering across his face, but he didn't pull away. "Nobody sent me," he said, his voice steady despite the grip on his arm. "I read. Webs I learn. I figure things out. There's a procedure, experimental, off the grid. It's not in your fancy hospitals. But it works. I can get you to the people who do it." His words were calm, measured, but they carried a weight that made Victor's hand loosen, just slightly. Emily's voice broke the tension, soft but firm, from the car. "Dad, let him talk." The window was down now, rain streaking the glass, and her eyes were locked on Caleb, searching, hopeful. Victor's hand fell away, shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of his daughter's voice. She hadn't sounded this alive, this engaged, in years. Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the edge of rage. "Fine," Victor growled, stepping back, his eyes still boring into Caleb. 5 minutes. "Talk. But if you're wasting my time, kid, you'll regret it." Caleb nodded, unfazed, and reached into his hoodie, pulling out the battered notebook. Its pages were worn, the edges curling, but the contents were meticulous. Diagrams of spinal anatomy, medical terms scrawled in precise, tiny script, references to studies Victor had never heard of. There's a clinic in Seoul, Caleb began, his voice steady, like a professor addressing a lecture hall. They're using neural bypass technology, microchips that reroute spinal signals around damaged tissue. It's not natural language processing, not FDA approved, but they've had success in early trials. 68% of patients regain partial mobility. I know a doctor there, Dr. Min-Jun Park. He can help Emily. Victor scoffed, his arms crossed, his posture radiating skepticism. A clinic in Seoul? You expect me to believe some back-alley operation can do what Northwestern Memorial can't. But his voice wavered, just slightly. Caleb's details were too specific, too technical, delivered with a calm assurance that didn't match his ragged appearance. This wasn't a con man's pitch. It was a blueprint, precise and calculated. Victor's eyes flicked to the notebook, then back to Caleb's face, searching for catch. Call Dr. Park, Caleb said, his voice unshaken as he handed Victor a crumpled business card with Korean phone number scrawled in ballpoint. He's expecting you. The boy's confidence was unnerving, a quiet challenge that made Victor's skin prickle with unease. Victor's first instinct was to toss the card into the gutter, let the rain wash it away with the rest of the night's debris. This was insane, a homeless kid peddling experimental medicine? But Emily's voice stopped him, soft and trembling with a hope he hadn't heard in years. Dad, please. What if he's right? Her eyes were wide, pleading, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Victor's heart twisted. He'd spent millions chasing dead ends, stem cell trials, nerve grafts, specialists who charged six figures to deliver disappointment. What was one phone call? Just another drop in the bucket of his desperation. He dialed the number, his hands trembling as a line connected across the world. A calm, accented voice answered. Dr. Min-Jun Park, Seoul Neurotech Institute. Victor's breath caught, his skepticism faltering. He explained Emily's case, his voice clipped, guarded, expecting a catch, a sales pitch. But Dr. Park listened patiently, then confirmed every word Caleb had said. The neural bypass, the microchips, the trials, the 68% success rate in early patients. We've been following your daughter's case, Dr. Park said, his tone professional, measured. The boy who gave you my card, he's the one who brought it to our attention. Victor's eyes snapped to Caleb, who stood quietly, rain dripping from his hood, his expression unreadable. You're telling me this kid contacted you? Victor asked, his voice barely a whisper, the world tilting beneath him. Yes, Dr. Park replied. He's unusual, brilliant. He found us through medical journals, tracked our research, even corrected one of our papers on signal latency. We've been emailing for months. Victor hung up, his mind reeling, the phone heavy in his hand. He stared at Caleb, the beggar boy who just dismantled his worldview with a crumpled business card and a notebook. Who are you? He asked again, but this time it wasn't a threat. It was a plea, a desperate need to understand the impossible standing before him. Caleb shrugged, his hazel eyes steady, almost weary. Just someone who pays attention, he said, and the simplicity of it cut deeper than any explanation could. The next day, Victor brought Caleb to his penthouse office, a glass-walled kingdom 30 floors above Lake Michigan, with a city sprawled beneath him like a chessboard he'd long since mastered. Emily was there, her wheelchair positioned by the window, her eyes bright with cautious hope, a spark Victor hadn't seen since before the accident. He'd run a background check on Caleb overnight. Nothing. No records, no family, no history. Just a ghost in a hoodie, a cipher with no footprint. But Dr. Park's words echoed in Victor's mind. Brilliant. Unsettlingly so. All right, kid, Victor said, tossing a folder onto a mahogany desk, empty save for a single sheet of paper confirming Caleb's non-existence. I checked you out. You're nobody. No school, no address, nothing. So, how do you know all this? And don't give me that I read crap. His voice was sharp, but there was a crack in it, a tremor of doubt. Caleb sat across from him, his notebook open, its pages a testament to obsession. Diagrams, formulas, references to studies in journals Victor's own doctors hadn't cited. I was in foster care, Caleb said quietly, his voice soft but unyielding. Bounced around until I was 12. Some homes were okay. Most weren't. I ran. Been on my own since. Libraries are free, Mr. Langston. So's the internet. I taught myself biology, neurology, coding, whatever I could find. When I saw Emily's story on the news, her picture in the paper, I started digging. Found Dr. Park's research in a journal archive. It fit her case like a puzzle piece. Victor leaned back, stunned, his fingers gripping the arms of his chair. A runaway kid, self-taught, outsmarting Ivy League doctors? It was absurd, laughable, yet the evidence was undeniable. The business card, the call to soul, the notebook filled with insights no 16-year-old should possess. Emily reached for the notebook, her fingers trembling as they traced the diagrams, the meticulous notes. "You did this for me?" she asked, her voice breaking, tears welling in her eyes. "Why?" Caleb looked at her, his hazel eyes softening, a flicker of something human breaking through his stoic facade. "Because I know what it's like to be stuck," he said, "to have no one believe in you, to be invisible." Victor's throat tightened, his chest heavy with a mix of awe and shame. He'd spent years fighting for Emily, pouring his fortune into her care, but he'd never felt so powerless as he did now, staring at a boy who'd done more with nothing than he had with everything. The room was silent, the hum of the city below a distant whisper. Victor's empire, his wealth, his control. It all felt hollow against Caleb's quiet, relentless competence. Victor stood, his voice low but firm, trying to reclaim the authority he'd built his life on. "You're telling me you, a homeless kid, found a cure my doctors couldn't? You expect me to trust you with my daughter's life." His words were sharp, but they lacked the bite he intended, undercut by the weight of Caleb's proof. Caleb met his gaze, unflinching, his voice steady as steel. "You don't have to trust me, Mr. Langston. Trust Dr. Park. Trust the science. I'm just a messenger." He slid the notebook across the desk, its pages a challenge, a dare. "Everything's there, studies, trials, risks. Read it, then decide." Victor opened the notebook, his hands unsteady, the pages revealing a world he hadn't known existed. References to peer-reviewed journals, data on neural bypass trials, a handwritten risk analysis that accounted for variables his own doctors had overlooked. It was meticulous, professional, undeniable. He looked at Emily, who nodded, her eyes fierce, alive with determination he hadn't seen in years. "I want to try it, Dad," she said, her voice steady. "I trust him." Victor's world tilted, the ground shifting beneath him. For years, he'd been the one in control, the one with answers, the one who bent the world to his will. Now, a boy with nothing had taken that from him. Not with arrogance, not with greed, but with a quiet, relentless competence that left Victor speechless. He sank into his chair, his voice barely audible, a whisper of surrender. "What do you want, kid? Money? A job? Name it." Caleb shook his head, his expression unreadable, his voice soft but firm. "I want Emily to walk. That's it." The room fell silent, the weight of his words heavier than the skyscrapers Victor owned. For the first time in his life, Victor Langston, the man who'd built an empire, wasn't the most powerful person in the room. Caleb, with his tattered hoodie and battered notebook, had taken that crown without even trying. 3 months later, Victor and Emily boarded a private jet to Seoul, the city's skyline fading as they ascended into clouds. Dr. Park's team was ready, the neural bypass procedure scheduled in a state-of-the-art facility that looked nothing like the back-alley operation Victor had feared. Caleb didn't come. He'd vanished after their meeting, leaving only his notebook and a note scrawled in his precise handwriting. "Tell Emily I'm rooting for her." Victor had hired private investigators, scoured the city, but Caleb was a ghost again, slipping back into Chicago's shadows as if he'd never existed. The notebook, though, remained, its pages a testament to his existence, a relic of the boy who'd changed everything. The surgery was a success, though not without its trials. Emily spent weeks in Seoul, enduring tests, adjustments, and therapy as the microchips were implanted, rerouting signals her spine could no longer carry. In a sterile white room, surrounded by monitors and soft-spoken doctors, she took her first steps, her legs trembling, her breath hitching as tears streamed down her face. Victor held her, his own tears falling, his voice choked with joy he thought he'd never feel again. She wasn't running marathons, not yet, but she was walking, something no doctor in Chicago, Zurich, or Boston had promised. Each step was a miracle, a defiance of the prognosis that had haunted them for years. Victor never forgot Caleb. He kept a notebook, its worn pages a reminder of the boy who'd seen what his millions couldn't. Emily framed the crumpled business card, hanging in her room beside a photo of her first steps in Seoul, a symbol of hope reborn. Victor donated millions to Dr. Park's institute, ensuring the neural bypass procedure would reach others, that no one else would face the despair he'd known. But the question lingered, a quiet ache in his chest. Who was Caleb, and where had he gone? The investigators found nothing, no trace, no leads, just rumors of a boy with sharp eyes and a tattered hoodie, moving through the city like a shadow. The Chicago skyline glittered outside Victor's penthouse, its lights a constellation of his achievements. But the view felt different now, softer, humbler. Emily stood at the window, her cane steady in her hand, her smile brighter than the city below. Victor watched her, his heart full but heavy, a mix of gratitude and awe. A boy with nothing had given him everything. A reminder that brilliance doesn't need a suit, a degree, or a title. Caleb's story wasn't just about one miracle. It was about the power of those society overlooks, the ones who see what others miss, who fight for hope when no one else will. He was a ghost, a flicker of genius in the rain. But his impact was eternal, etched in Emily's steps, in Victor's humble heart. The world is full of Calebs, hidden in plain sight, their voices drowned out by wealth and power, their potential buried under assumptions and disdain. But truth doesn't care about status. It finds a way, through a notebook, a cardboard sign, or a single, audacious promise in the rain. Victor had learned it the hard way, and he'd carry it with him always. A lesson written not in contracts or deals, but in the quiet courage of a boy who dared to believe. If this story moved you, if it stirred something deep in your chest, share it with someone who needs to believe in the impossible. Subscribe for more stories that remind us the greatest heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear hoodies, and they change the world one step at a time.